The European model is currently forecasting a major winter storm to impact the northeast coast as we approach the 22nd and the 23rd of January. If I were to continue to move forward with what the European model is stating at this time, of course, throughout the Midwest, you need to pay very close attention to this major snowstorm that's expected to move through. That's expected to bring 6 to 12 inches of snow by the late week. However, after this first storm system moves through the Midwest and the Northeast, bringing a large area of potentially up to a foot of snow, we could see another low pressure system develop as a result of a significant jet stream dip that's expected to build by early next week, where we will see a cold front move through that's going to create a highly unstable environment right around the southeast for a powerful low pressure system to develop. And there's going to be just enough cold air this time locked in place in the northeast to bring major snowfall all throughout the major cities up along the Interstate 95 corridor, such as Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia, where in this depiction of the European model wants to bring anywhere between 3 to 6 to 6 to 12 inches of snow from this snowstorm in all the major cities, including the metropolitan areas, of course, and even portions of the Midwest, such as Ohio and Indiana, could get involved, where the European model has been persisting on this forecast over the past several runs. So it's definitely something to take note of all throughout the Northeast at this time, because the European model, a very reliable forecast model, has been very persistent with this scenario over the past several days. Of course, there's been differences. It hasn't been exactly the same, but the fact that the European model has been taking a powerful snowstorm right around the January 23rd timeframe over the past several runs means that there could be some truth to it, but there's still a high amount of uncertainty because this storm system is still 6 to 7 days out, so a lot could change. And of course, we've seen this trend before, where we see the computer models bring a significant snowstorm right up along the northeast coast before eventually shifting before the computer models shift their forecast and bring the snow further westward. But the reason why the European model wants to bring the snow closer to the northeast is because as a result of a lack of ridging that's expected to build as we approach the January 23rd timeframe. The reason why we haven't been seeing as many snowstorms impact the northeast is because there typically has been a huge ridge located right around eastern Canada that's been forcing low pressure systems to move northward rather quickly, and it's forcing a strong southerly flow to dominate the northeast United States, bringing the temperatures up and of course preventing the chance of snowfall. In this scenario, the European model does not expect that to happen, as the European model expects this ridge to be just weak enough to bring a significant snowstorm right up along the northeast coast, and just enough instability, of course, to bring to strengthen this low pressure system, to bring a heavy amount of snow. But there's still uncertainty with the forecast. We're going to really need to see how powerful this ridge will be, how strong this ridge will be, to really determine how far to the east this will move before it turns northward, and it will really determine the trajectory of the low pressure system. As of right now, the European model is leaning towards bringing this storm more towards a due east direction, which would bring the heavier snowfall to the northeast, but the GFS model is showing a very different scenario. The GFS model in the same time period is forecasting this low pressure system to move northward a lot more quickly, since the ridge is a lot stronger in the GFS's model scenario, which is enhancing the strong southerly flow earlier, which would force the jet stream to position itself to steer the jet stream winds from more of a due south direction, which will force low pressure system to mainly bring snow to portions of the Midwest rather than the northeast, where we see Chicago, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Detroit all get involved with this significant snowstorm, rather than the Interstate 95 corridor cities that include Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and even Washington, D.C. And we do see that there is some snow in the interior northeast, but still it's far from that significant snowstorm that the European model is forecasting. So how strong this ridge will be as we approach the January 22nd to 23rd timeframe will be key in determining the exact trajectory of this storm. The GFS model expects a stronger, more dominant ridge, which will bring more of the snow to the Midwest and bring more of a rain event to portions of Northeast. However, we see in the European model scenario, the ridge is a lot weaker, so the low pressure system has a lot more of an open lane to move further eastward. We're going to need to pay very close attention to that over the next several days. If we were to take a look at the GFS model's forecast when it comes to the 500 millibar height anomaly as we approach January 22nd, we do see that there's a very strong ridge located right up along the east coast that's going to block this whole pressure system from having an open lane to move eastward and bring that colder air further eastward as well, since of course all the cold air will be on the western side of this whole pressure system, since the winds will come from a northerly direction rather than a southerly direction. So as a result, the GFS, as a result of this large ridge, the GFS model is forecasting the storm to move northward rather than eastward and bring more of the snow to the northern Midwest. Taking a look at what the European model is forecasting in the same time period on Sunday, January 22nd, we see that the ridge is a lot weaker, and in fact we see a small trough move through the east coast, which will allow this whole pressure system to have more of an open lane to move towards the northeast without getting blocked by a very dominant ridge. So as a result of this, the European model wants to bring more of a significant snowstorm to the northeast. So we're going to need to pay very close attention to this ridge as it unfolds over the next several days, and I'll keep you guys updated regarding that forecast. Take a look at what the European model is forecasting when it comes to the January 23rd storm system. When it comes to snowfall accumulation, we do see that New York City, Philadelphia are all right on the border between 3 to 6 to 6 to 12 inches of snow. Boston is experiencing potentially close to a foot of snow associated from that storm system, so you need to pay very close attention to this. And even as far west as Ohio and Indiana, you would get involved with this storm system, and large portions of Pennsylvania and upstate New York get involved with 6 to 12 inches of snow. So this will be a major snowstorm for much of the East Coast, and for a lot of you guys, this would be your first accumulating snowfall, since it's been a very quiet winter when it comes to snowfall for many portions of the Northeast. Take a look at the GFS's model's snowfall accumulation forecast regarding this storm system, as well as the January 22nd and 23rd storm system. We do see that snow is a lot further westward, where we see 6 to 12 inches throughout Chicago, and over a foot of snow in some northern portions of Indiana. And a lot of the snow should impact the interior Northeast as well. However, a lot of the major cities such as New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. do not get involved in the GFS model's scenario when it comes to either storm system. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. We're going to pay close attention to this over the next several days. Now, take a look at this storm system that's expected to impact the Midwest by the late week. So we see that by tomorrow, the low pressure should be right in between Colorado and Utah. And of course, there's going to be a high amount of cold air behind it that's going to interact with this very warm, moist air that's located right around southeast. And that'll create some thunderstorm activity further southward, as well as very heavy snowfall further northward, where a large portion of Nebraska should experience 6 to 12 inches of snow. And this should be the worst right around midday on Wednesday. So you want to pay close attention to that for potentially your morning commute or your afternoon commute as well during rush hour. And then the heavier snowfall should move into Iowa by the early Thursday timeframe. And it was debatable whether or not the Chicago area would experience a rain or snow event associated with this low pressure system. Now it's becoming increasingly likely at this point this will primarily be a rain event for Chicago, as it seems like the southerly winds will just be too much will bring the temperature way too high for the precipitation to fall in the form of snowfall. But you should still expect heavier snowfall just north of Milwaukee and a large portion of Wisconsin as well. And we do see that some heavy snowfall should occur in the interior Northeast as well, just north of Boston. A large portion of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine should pay very close attention to this, as it's becoming increasingly likely a lot of these areas will experience a very significant snowstorm out of this winter storm. So here's a snowfall forecast for this first winter storm. So we do see a large area of 6 to 12 inches throughout Nebraska. Some areas of Nebraska could experience potentially over a foot of snow, so make sure to pay very close attention to that. This includes big cities such as Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee. You all could get involved with over 6 inches of snow, and a large portion of the interior Northeast as well, where we could see the snow move into New Hampshire and the upstate New York area. So you want to pay very close attention to that, as certainty is high with this storm system at this point. So don't expect any major changes with the forecast, as the European model is pretty much in very good agreement with this forecast. So to summarize, there is a possibility that we could see a major winter storm impact the Northeast by right around the January 23rd timeframe. We're going to need to pay close attention to how the ridge builds right up along the East Coast to determine if that snow will move far east enough to bring snow to the Interstate 95 corridor cities. But that will take some time. I wouldn't say we'll get a good idea till I'd say the late week, right around the Friday timeframe. That's when we'll definitely get a better hold of this forecast. So make sure to stay tuned for further updates as we continue to analyze this storm system as it continues to move further eastward. But I thank you guys for watching.